So thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Katie Poser. I'm the outreach librarian for the NOAA Library, and we are very excited that we got to partner with the NOAA Weather Program Office to bring you today's presentation on their FY25 Notice of Funding Opportunity. I am going to turn it over to the Acting Director of the Weather Program Office, John Tenhope, to get us started.
Okay, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I think you can go ahead and show the slides, Anthony. I believe you were going to do a little bit of just the webinar logistics before we get started here, and then I'll do an introduction to WPO.
Good morning and welcome to our FY25 Notice of Funding Opportunity. Today, we will quickly go through every program competition's priorities and objectives, and then we will be followed by a Q&A session. I want to remind the group to, in advance, include their questions in the chat so that we can prepare and answer them accordingly. Also, for context, there have been several changes regarding in regards to our program competitions, in regards to our requirements, in regards to the systems we rely on to review proposals and make awards. So please, please, please do read the NOFO in its entirety. And with that, I will pass it back over to you, John.
Okay. So first, thank you all for joining today for the Weather Programs Office's FY25 NOFO webinar. I am John Tenhope. I'm the Acting Director of WPO. And I just want to start out by providing some information about the Weather Program Office. Our mission, our vision, and our core values are really what drives us in WPO. And our vision is innovative science powering a weather-ready nation. You can see the connection there in that statement to the Weather Service's vision of building a weather-ready nation, which is a partner that we work very closely with. Our mission is central to everything we do. Our mission is cultivating, funding, and transitioning collaborative weather research that results in accurate and actionable weather information for all. Our team adheres to the highest scientific, personal, and professional standards, which is evident in our core values, which are integrity, inclusive innovation, teamwork, social stewardship, and results driven. And overall, we welcome a wide diversity of experiences, knowledge, and ideas to drive open science solutions for the weather enterprise. And in an effort to be as inclusive as possible, we're hosting this webinar today to lower the barriers for all of you to be able to submit to our funding competitions this year. So next slide, please. So if you don't remember our vision and mission, you can hopefully remember our tagline here, which is that we fund research to improve forecasts. We work very closely with the National Weather Service, OER laboratories, and the larger weather research enterprise to improve our understanding of weather phenomena and also to transition research to improve forecasts for the public. We have 3 science divisions in WPO, which you can see on the right on the slide. We also have another management and administration division, which isn't shown here, but is equally as important to getting the work done in the office. And under these 3 science divisions are several programs that span the value chain from observations to modeling to forecast tool development to social science. And they also span forecast timescales from nowcasting all the way to subseasonal to seasonal. And you'll hear from several of these programs today that are included in our NOFO. Next slide, please. So many of you might be wondering how we develop our NOFO and our scientific priorities each year, again, which you'll hear about today. Well, there's really a multi-step process that we use. First, we look at our available funding, and we also look at congressional appropriations language, which often provide us some research directions. From there, we look at other authorization language, such as the Weather Research and Forecasting Innovation Act of 2017, and also its reauthorization in 2019. We look to our own strategic plan in WPO, which we developed in 2019, which is built on our parent organization's plans in OER and NOAA, and also our partner in the Weather Service. One of the other documents we have used extensively is the NOAA Science Advisory Board's Priorities for Weather Research report that was released in late 2021, early 2022, and I would highly recommend you read that report if you haven't looked at that yet. And finally, we solicit input from our key partners and stakeholders in NOAA, as well as from the scientific community to ask what are the key research questions that need to be addressed and where's the state of the science going. So for instance, the Probabilistic Impact-Based Decision Support Initiative in the National Weather Service has heavily influenced our NOFO this year, as you'll see in some of the priorities. And so all of our program managers use this information to develop their competition's objectives and scientific priorities, in addition to the target readiness levels for the research they're soliciting. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Anthony, who's going to introduce some of our speakers today.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Please feel free to confirm in the chat that you guys can hear me okay. Okay. Thank you. So again, yes, my name is Anthony Brown. I am our grant process manager here in our weather program office. Before I introduce our program managers, I do want to highlight some key details. I want to start again and direct our potential applicants to read the NOFO in its entirety. And again, prepare any questions in the chat so that we can answer afterwards. So starting off, we felt it important to let you guys know at the forefront the key dates. So we have our letters of opportunity due date that is going to be October 2nd. We plan and will be prepared to respond to LOIs mid-October. And then the proposal, the application full proposal due date will be December 2nd. So as I mentioned earlier, we've had several changes to the systems in which we rely on, that being ERA, which I will discuss in greater detail later on in the slide deck. But again, these are the dates to be aware of. Some key highlights. So our funding opportunity this year consists of 6 separate NOFO competitions, right? 6 separate program competitions. WPO hasn't done it this way in several years. So we wanted to make sure that you guys were not looking for those who are familiar to our process. We are not this year putting forth an omnibus all-inclusive NOFO. This year's NOFO will be separate, 6 separate competitions, and will total approximately $12,850,000. Funding is contingent upon the availability of federal appropriations. Again, as I said earlier, we have 6 separate competitions. Each competition has unique science priorities, objectives, and program managers. However, all competitions have the same guidelines, regulations, deadlines, evaluation criteria. So with that, I will introduce our first program manager, Allison Krepp, and she will tell you about her program's competition. Allison?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Anthony. Hello, everyone. My name is Allison Krepp, and as Anthony said, I am the program manager for the social science program here in the Weather Program office. So I get to lead us off today talking about the Social, Behavioral, and Economic Sciences Competition, SBES for short. And one of the things that I want to point out about this competition, for some of you that may be familiar with the prior 2 cycles, is that you'll notice the priorities for our competition have become broader. And so, as with everything in this NOFO, we encourage you to read the announcement in its entirety for the most detailed information, but we'll go over a few highlights here. Ultimately, what we are looking to do is listed here on the page. And I think what I'd like to do is go quickly to the next page, Anthony, because that's where the priorities live. Much of that text you can read in the announcement itself. So there are 3 main priorities to our competition here this year. The first is community responses to weather. That's really our first big bucket. And in the announcement itself, there is additional context and additional information on the sub priorities underneath this. But really, some of the high level points has to do with thinking about how is information flowing through communities looking at formal networks and informal networks for weather information. And so that is something that we are looking to understand at a deeper level, whether it's at the town level or the city level, tribal units as well. Those are all areas that we have an interest in when we think about the term community. And I'll also point out that how we define community for this particular competition is defined in the NOFO itself. So if you're sitting out there going, what does that mean? It is a broadly interpreted term. You can look there to see what we mean when we're talking about community for this competition. The second bucket that we have for this year, the big priority, is really behavioral responses to hazardous weather events. We're looking at how do individuals and social groups respond cognitively to hazardous weather information. That includes probabilistic information. It includes other types of weather information that come across, the frequency with which they come across, the modes with which they come across. But what are those behavioral responses to a range of hazardous weather events happening, across our country? So I encourage you also to take a look. As with each one of these priorities, the way that we've designed the SBES competition is that there will be a goal, there's a context, and then there's a detailed articulation of the priority itself, which I don't have room for on this one slide, which is why we're doing these high-level highlights. And then lastly, we have data, forecasts, and societal outcomes. So this is really a call to bring more of an evidence-based understanding to weather impacts, injuries, lives lost, to identify and work with some of the data that helps us understand those things. We've had limited experience with this so far, and we're really looking to be able to support projects that can bring us a little bit closer to understanding how data forecasts relate to societal outcomes. I will highlight, and it's also highlighted in the NOFO, that with this particular priority, one of the things that we're not focused on here is monetary economic valuation of an improved forecast. And so therefore, and you'll see it, we've noted that we do discourage proposals that are focusing in that area. And certainly I'm happy to answer questions about that. But if you were sitting out there having read this priority and said, oh, is that something, we've called that out specifically in the announcement, but I'll also highlight it here as well. And I think with that, Anthony, I want to save as much time as we can for questions that the audience might have. So I would like to pass it off to the next speaker.
Thank you. Thank you. Jordan will now present on testbeds program competition.
Great. Can you hear me fine?
Yes, we can.
That we can.
Okay, thank you. Hello, I'm Jordan Dale, and I'm the program manager for WPO's testbeds program, and I'll be managing the testbeds NOFO this year. Next slide, please. Thank you. So before I start, I do want to highlight that at the top of the slide, please note the unique federal funding number associated with this NOFO, and that is available for download at grants.gov. Within the NOFO for testbeds are the complete program objectives, priorities, and other important information. I highly encourage interested applicants to review the NOFO in its entirety prior to preparing a letter of intent and/or proposal. For this NOFO, proposals submitted should focus on mature projects that are nearly ready or ready to be tested in a quasi-operational forecasting environment through one or more of the 5 participating testbeds. Projects should fall in or near the demonstration level of technical maturity. What that means is typically readiness levels of about 5 through 8 during the duration of the project. And I also want to highlight that proposal or application packages must include a signed testbed collaboration form. You can access that form as part of the NOFO package that's available for download at grants.gov. Next slide. All right, so here are all the priorities, but first I want to highlight what the testbeds are that are participating in this year's NOFO for testbeds. They are the NOAA Climate Testbed, Fire Weather Testbed, Hazardous Weather Testbed, Hurricane and Ocean Testbed, and Hydrometeorology Testbed. Specific priorities for each of these testbeds are on the slide, but I encourage you to read the full priorities and the full NOFO that is available for download at grants.gov. The science focus of a specific proposed project will determine which testbed is most appropriate for a given proposal. Letters of intent and/or proposals should state which testbed your project proposes to work with, and you can do that through clearly identifying one or more of the program priorities as relevant to your project. And I do encourage you to do that on your cover page and other places throughout your letters of intent and/or proposals. I also want to note that collaboration across testbeds is also possible. So if your project proposes to work with multiple testbeds, letters of intent or proposals should clearly identify each of the testbeds and explain collaborative properties of the proposed work. So I won't go into the details of all the priorities. There are a lot here. I kind of summarize them into just a couple words here, but there's a lot more information in the NOFO. So again, I do encourage all of you to go download the full NOFO, read through the priorities in their entirety, and think about which ones best fit your project idea prior to preparing letters of intent or proposals. And I won't belabor anymore, so I will pass it on to our next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. Next, we have Renee Richardson, who will present on observations program competition.
Thanks, Anthony. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Yes? Okay. Great. Okay. So, hi, everyone. I'm Renee Richardson, and I'm the Deputy Program Manager for WPO's Observations Program. I'm speaking on behalf of our Program Manager, Mark Vincent, today. We are extremely excited to share this FY25 funding announcement. And like Jordan noted previously, please be mindful of the unique federal funding opportunity number for the observations competition at the top of the slide, especially as you navigate grants.gov for the full NOFO package. So for our competition this year, the WPO Observations Program will support research that aims to advance our 4 priorities that are outlined in the NOFO. The goal of this funding announcement is to develop, demonstrate, and/or analyze innovative observing sensors, technologies, and strategies that have a high potential for advancing an observation systems portfolio that is relevant to and supports the weather enterprise. And we do have some points outlined here that proposals are strongly encouraged to abide by when they develop their proposals, also in their LOIs. But I won't go into too much detail just to save time while speaking, as you can find more information, more detailed information about this on the NOFO. So let's get into the priorities. Anthony, please go to the next slide. So as previously mentioned, our FY25 announcement holds 4 priorities. Just to give a high-level overview of each of these priorities, our first being for a weather buoy mitigation vehicle. There is a need for a high-endurance modular construction and portable USV or uncrewed surface vehicle to provide weather buoy backup capabilities during buoy maintenance and other outages to prevent data gaps. Secondly, our second priority is rainfall estimate improvement. There is a need to improve the derived specific differential phase or KDP radar product to ultimately improve rainfall, particularly heavy rainfall estimates. And our third priority revolves around improving the stepped frequency microwave radiometer, or SFMR. And there is a need to develop and demonstrate develop and demonstrate software to process the SFMR brightness temperature measurements and to deliver more reliable rain rates and surface wind speeds. And lastly, our fourth priority is tropical cyclone reconnaissance data advancements. This priority seeks the use of the NOAA UFS, or Unified Forecast System, including the GFS, or Global Forecast System, and the HAF system, the Hurricane Analysis and Forecast system to address the needs for improved use, assimilation, and quality assurance, quality control for tropical reconnaissance data. I will note that this priority does hold several sub-bullets or sub-priorities. So again, as everyone else speaking previously has noted, I strongly encourage you to refer to and read our NOFO in its entirety for more details on each of these priorities and our competition in general. So with that, I'll pass it back to you, Anthony, for our next speaker.
Thank you, Renee. Thank you. Next up, we have Mark Olson to introduce and talk to the sub-seasonal to seasonal program competition. Mark?
Great, thank you. I am Mark Olson, the S2S Program Manager, as Anthony said, and I am happy to highlight the sub-seasonal to seasonal competition. And like all the competitions here, our unique opportunity number is listed at the top of the slide here. And so with this competition, we're looking to improve S2S forecast capabilities. This includes areas investigating sources of predictability, land and sea conditions or initialization, AI, ML post-processing, and many more. So although many of the priority areas here you're going to see are similar to the climate test bed that Jordan already mentioned, this competition is for proposals that are at lower readiness levels, beginning within the range of 2 to 4. So in other words, ideas and projects that are not as close to being ready for an operational environment and not ready for development in a test bed. So within this competition, and of course, if appropriate, we encourage applicants to coordinate with the UFS R2O project, especially with the teams developing the Global Ensemble Forecast System and or the Seasonal Forecast System. And we also encourage collaboration with the Earth Prediction Innovation Center, or EPIC, if appropriate, and more information and links on both EPIC and the UFS R2O are given in the NOFO and the information sheet, which I encourage you to read fully. So next slide, please. So onto the priorities here. The S2S competition has 3 listed priority areas. So first, we seek to improve data assimilation capabilities across Earth components, including ice, ocean, waves, land, atmosphere. And this also includes assimilation of new observation types important for S2S prediction scales, while still remaining consistent with the coupled DA for UFS-based applications. And second, we want to improve Earth system models through developing and evaluating model components or sub-elements of those components. And again, the work should benefit UFS components and development. It can also focus on just one component of the Earth system or interaction between components, the land-atmosphere interactions, for example. So finally, we're also looking for improvements to existing ensembles. And so this includes initialization strategies, ensemble construction, post-processing methods, many other areas. And so to wrap up, I just want to remind folks that this competition is focused on S2S timescales. I'll also add that these priorities listed on the slide are really kind of abbreviated descriptions. And again, more details you can find in the NOFO itself and the associated information sheet. And so with that, I believe Ling Yan is next with the air quality competition. I'll let her speak.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Next, Ling Yang will present on our air quality research and forecasting program competition. Ling Yang?
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. And could you migrate to the next page, please? Hi, I'm Lin Yanxing. I'm the program manager for the synaptic weather at the WPO. And this year, we're going to offer the air quality research and forecast competition. And so air quality has improved significantly in the recent decades after the Clear Air Act was passed in 1970. However, there are still many areas of the country exposed to the unhealthy levels of the air pollutants. especially when the fire weather is happening in some of the areas, such as the Western North America. And also, we have the high surface ozone episodes during heat waves across the eastern United States, as they show as the pictures on the right-hand side. So, the aim of this competition is to support the mitigation of the unhealthy level of air pollutants harming human health and the damage sensitive ecosystems. So, the current NOAA operational science improvements needs for air quality predictions. So we're seeking for the proposals should demonstrate the following features. And first, improving emission modeling, such as the wildland fire smoke and dust, and the timely updates of anthropogenic sources and the mineralogy and components and initialization of atmospheric composition, concentration, and emission using coupled data assimilation. And also, your proposal should demonstrate incorporating feedback of the atmospheric composition on atmospheric physics and the meteorological data assimilation through coupled modeling, and improving computational efficiency of atmospheric composition transport, gas phase chemistry, data assimilation, and prediction. We encourage you to increase, because we increased the collaboration is desired in building the coupled UFS with the shared community atmospheric chemistry components that the NOAA uses for operational air quality applications and for operational weather forecasts. Next page, please. We're going to cover some of the priorities. This year, air quality forecast involves the use of the science and technology to predict the concentration of air pollution in atmosphere for a given location and the time. Projects should have the potential to improve both air quality prediction and research by incorporating scientific advances in chemistry modeling and inputs from the latest pollutant emission datasets will be considered. So we have 7 priorities this year for this computation, and they are listed here. And I know there's a lot of details here, but we encourage people to submit the proposal and the LOI and to cover those priorities. And this is only the shortcut of the highlight of the priorities. If you want to see all of the details, please see those things in our published NOFO, because they have more details over there. And so we'll cover the development evaluation of the model. We'll evaluate all of the capability system with the UFS regional model coupled. And we also encourage you to do their methodology, model accuracy using data assimilation, and also verification software method, and optimizing chemistry process to increase the computational efficiency. So this is kind of very brave, again, points. And please refer to the published novel for the full details of each priority. Thank you very much. I will pass to our next speaker, Jordan.
Thank you,
and
Ling
Jan.
Yang. Yes,
All
Jordan,
right.
please continue.
Fine.
Yep.
Thank you, Anthony. I'm Jordan Dell again, and I'm also managing WPO's FY25 Vortex USA NOFO. Again, at the top of the slide, I want to note the unique federal funding number associated with this NOFO that is available for download at grants.gov. Within the Vortex USA NOFO are complete program objectives, priorities, and other important information. Again, I encourage interested applicants to review the NOFO in its entirety prior to preparing a letter of intent and/or proposal. Vortex USA stands for the Verification of the Origins of Rotation in Tornadoes Experiment in the United States of America, is a research program intended to improve the effectiveness of tornado forecasts and warnings in the United States. Proposals submitted to the Vortex USA NOFO should focus on physical science topics exploring new meteorological knowledge and the application of state-of-the-art numerical weather prediction and data assimilation systems. Proposals can also focus on social science topics exploring avenues for more effectively communicating tornado forecasts to the public and evaluating aspects of public vulnerability, risk perception, and response to these forecasts in order to more effectively mitigate damage, injuries, and loss of life from tornadoes. Next slide. For this year's Vortex USA program priorities, there are four specific priorities that I want to highlight here. That letters of intent and/or proposals should clearly identify as relevant to your proposed work. The priorities include physical and/or social science studies focused on improving actionable information to the public and end users in the critical time period from 30 minutes to 4 hours prior to a tornadic event. Understanding and reducing societal vulnerability to tornadoes. Studies that support better understanding of the complex near-surface wind flows in tornadic storms, how those winds interact with the built and natural environment to cause damage and societal impacts, and connecting such better understanding to developing improved response and mitigation strategies. And finally, exploring refined or novel predictors of tornadoes or potential improvements to data assimilation for mesoanalysis and convection allowing modeling systems, utilizing data from previous Vortex USA supported field campaigns, including perils. Again, I highly encourage interested applicants to review the full Vortex USA NOFO that is available for download at grants.gov prior to preparing letters of intent and/or proposals. In the full NOFO, you'll see more details about the priorities and additional information relevant to this NOFO competition. That's all I have, and I'll turn it back to Anthony for more information about the NOFO.
Thank you, Jordan. Thank you. So where can potential applicants and those interested in our program, our 6 program competitions, find additional information? Well, we invite you guys to, one, visit our Weather Program Office program competition webpage. We also have a webpage that has self-directed presentations on our research priorities, the grants process, the application process, eligibility requirements, and then other partnerships and funding opportunities as well. We also, on that site, we have an NOFO FAQ, an application checklist, as well as information sheets for each program competition, and then a general information sheet that covers all 6. Lastly, we invite you to utilize the resources on our website to find links to previous competitions, as well as highlights from previous years' funded projects. ERA guidance. So as I mentioned earlier, there's been several changes in regards to the systems in which we rely upon to accept proposals, applications, to review those applications, and then make a funding recommendation. ERA is at the top of that list. So in order to submit a successful proposal, we want to be super, super clear that applicants need to maintain 3 registrations, that being SAM.govs, grants.gov, and ERA. To be able to register for grants.gov, you would need a SAM.gov account where you would get your UEI number, and that's going to help you in your registration for ERA Commons. Please note that the materials, the slide deck here, and the Q&A afterwards will be readily available on our website next week. So please reference this information again if there's any questions and for further guidance. Again, we will need applicants will need a ERA Commons account for successful application submission. We are recommending to start that process as soon as possible, but please allow yourself a minimum of 6 weeks to complete the registration process and allow ample time for registration. And then I want to highlight that in the process in submitting a proposal, you will get an email. Applicants will get an email notification from ERA, right? And that will validate and confirm that your proposal submission, your application was successful. Your submission was successful. However, if there are any errors associated with that application, please note that it is the onus on the applicant to address all errors, whether that be grants.gov or whether that be an ERA, prior to resubmitting again and confirming that your application was successfully submitted to the ERA system. Application due dates and highlights. So our NOFO, our 6 NOFOs were our 6 NOFO, excuse me, was published on September 17th. Letters of intent are due the 2nd of October. We anticipate to be able to respond to those letters of intent by mid-October. And again, as mentioned earlier, the application deadline is December 2nd, promptly at 5 p.m. I want to go back to the letters of intent and highlight that all letters of intent must be submitted by 5 p.m. on October 2nd, as well as the proposal application deadline. That application should be submitted by 5 p.m. on December 2nd. Please note again that applications must pass both the grants.gov and ERA system checks prior to this deadline. So again, please allow and allot as much time for your entities to begin the registration process to be able to ensure a successful application submission. We are, again, anticipating that funding recommendations will be made by May of 2025. And that could close this line. Final reminders. We can't overstate the fact that we are now relying on different processes, different systems. So again, in order to submit a successful application, please do make sure that you have the adequate registration for SAM.gov's, grants.gov, and ERA Commons. Allow yourself as much time as needed. Start that process as soon as possible. As I stated earlier, the materials from today's webinar will be posted in the coming days. So please reference that information on our website directly. Again, to highlight our competition due dates, October 2nd, for those who want to take advantage of the strongly recommended LOI process. Please submit your letters of intent by October 2nd, 5 p.m., no later than 5 p.m. We will respond mid-October approximately, and then your due dates for your application, for the application proposals, are due December 2nd. If there are any questions that potential applicants encounter during the registration process, to make sure that they have submitted a successful proposal, questions related to any of the 6 competitions, please contact the email address listed here in this slide. And with that, I want to again highlight that this year is different from previous years. We have not put forth an omnibus, all-inclusive NOFO with 2 or more competitions. Every program competition is contained in a separate NOFO. So please reference the appropriate NOFO announcement number, which is listed in this slide. And be sure, again, as our program managers have stated over and over again in their presentations, please sure to read the NOFOs in its entirety to be well aware of our requirements, to be well aware of the systems in which you need to be registered for, to be well aware of the program priorities and objectives, just to put yourself in the best position. So again, we are going to now transition to Q&A session. I'm going to take a minute here and review the approved questions that were included in the chat. I actually think it's a better idea for us to end on the slide with each program, competition, and the appropriate announcement number. So give us a second here as we review and begin to answer any questions that were provided.